any longer.
So much to talk about on the show. As always, the only price you've got to pay is to stay with us on the program TMI on the ITV network. I'm Sonny Duke Okosu. My colleagues are here with me, Chuku Funaya, and of course, Anu Oluwakbo. Ladies, good to have you on the show. How's the weekend?
Well, it's good to be here. A fun, relaxing weekend, but it's back to work and back to dishing out information that are pertinent and useful.
Okay, and Anu?
My weekend was great. It was quite short.
It's showing over you, showing all over you.
Well, I feel like we should have like Monday attached to the weekend. But anyway, we're here now, and it's good to be here. Thank God for life.
You say?
We should have we should have an extension of the weekend sometimes.
Okay, as always, we have our colleagues joining us from Abuja Network Studio. Kadro is there, and of course, Mercelina from our Lagos Network Studio. In the course of the program. Okay, we've got Mercy here. Mercy, good to have you on the show. Talk to me about the weekend that just ended. I mean, today is Monday. Are you like Anu that wants weekend to extend to 4 days out of a week?
Good morning to you, Dr. Sonny Duke, of course. Good morning, and good morning, Chukwufunaya. Amen. If the weekend could extend, we would be happy about it. You know, I had a beautiful week. It's a good day. And, you know, upon this thing that people know, the week is very short, but when it's weekdays, it's very long, and you're excited, oh, it's weekend. And, you know, you'll be waiting. Before you know it, you know it, you close your eyes and open, it's already Monday. But, man, we're used to the job, we're used to, you know, waking up and coming to work. It's a beautiful day here in Lagos and a good weather, and we're looking forward to the day.
Fantastic, fantastic. Well, so much to talk about, particularly as it relates to the debt profile of Nigeria. The debts are rising and the loans are increasing, and they are broadening by the day. And then, of course, a subsidy has been removed. So the fundamental question has been, subsidy is gone. The removal of subsidy was supposed to give us a platform to get more monies into the country. And more monies are actually coming in. So why are we still borrowing? Why is the debt profile of Nigeria rising, particularly under the present administration? Where are all the monies going into? These are some of the questions we're going to be asking on the show today, TMI on the ITV network. But of course, as always, we'll kickstart the conversation from the studio before we bring in our panelist joining us from Vancouver in Canada, Dr. Osaze Iyoha. And then, of course, we've got Destiny Owabo, development economist, joining us live here in the studio. But let's get talking about the latest in the loan request by the federal government. I hear the $516 million loan request, it hasn't been approved, which means it hasn't been gotten, but is dedicated to the Sokoto Badagry superhighway, as it were. So to talk to me about what you know about it. You're not the finance minister. Anyway.
I am not, but yeah, I am a Nigerian who is also, you know, wanting to keep in tune with what's happening in Nigeria. And so, you know, I've gone to research it a little bit, and I can tell you that it's, like you did say, it's about the financing deal for the Sokoto Badagry Expressway, which the president does say is in the long run going to boost Nigeria's economy. And it's something that we've heard repeated times from the presidency, from the government, that these economic reforms are long-term reforms. You did speak about the subsidy removal, which we were told as well that is going to be a long-term benefits to Nigeria's economy, and now we're seeing this $516 million loan request brought up to the Senate by the presidency. The president plans to take that loan from the Deutsche Bank, a German institution, and of course the loan spans over 9 years, which is just saying that they're going to be paying that loan maybe in the next administration. So he's not just planning this debt for himself or for his own administration, but for the administration to come. And while he does say that the Sokoto-Badagry Expressway is going to boost trade, is going to boost economic activities in Nigeria, there's also concerns that is this not an economic shortfall? A lot of Nigerians are asking questions, and hopefully with time we'll see answers.
Okay, fantastic. I mean, if they get you employed as the Minister of Finance, I mean, you're going to do a lot of... anyways, I know, yeah, you've been following this story. Are you bothered?
Well, I think a lot of Nigerians should be bothered at this point, but I want to take it up from the angle of where Sanusi, the former Central Bank of Nigeria governor, did state over the weekend. He was so vocal about it at an event in Abuja where he talked about borrowing. But even before I say that, in the words of Bayo Onanuga, borrowing is not a sin. Okay, so he actually did talk about the fact that the fuel subsidy was removed by the president. Of course, he has been behind that, policy being done. And when he did see our president come in May 2023 to do that, he was quite good. But now, what is the problem? With the fuel subsidy being removed, it means that we have more monies for the government. Right now, governors in different states in Nigeria
and even local governments,
right, are getting 10 times more than what they usually get. So why are we still borrowing? That is the big question right now on every Nigerian's lip. He talked about transparency, he talked about accountability, and this is where we are really. I feel like a lot of Nigerians would not be bothered if when we see our government or government officials borrow and we see the dividends of what they are even using the monies for, like infrastructure, light and all of that, right? We would really not be bothered. But in a situation where you keep on borrowing and borrowing, especially at this critical point in governance when we have the 2027 election just around the corner, there are those who would say perhaps it's for political realignment and political, all of that. But right now we do not know, and the question has really come to stay. Why are we still borrowing more when subsidy was removed, when we do not have, subsidy being there? What is that dividend that an average Nigerian is truly enjoying at this point?
Ms. Olina, maybe you can help us make sense of this issue. Why are we still borrowing? Give us insight into what you're looking at from the Lagos studio.
Yeah, exactly. That will be our main session today. We will be having a legal practitioner that would help us talk more on it today. That is the question a lot of Nigerians, myself, you, and all the Nigerians, that is the question we've been asking. I mean, we saw that when the president just came into power, talking about President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, the first thing he did was to, remove fuel subsidy. And we were thinking, according to him, that would help boost the economy, that would bring more money into the economy. But at this time, we are still borrowing. According to what I just said earlier, the Nigerians, if we're seeing the dividend of what they use this money, we won't ask this question. Nigerians wouldn't come out to ask this question. But the fact that they kept borrowing and borrowing and borrowing, and we're not saying what they're using it for in terms of infrastructure and all of that. We're not saying these things. And you kept coming out to say you want to borrow, the Senate should approve and all of that. Nigerians were worried. At this point, I feel we should be worried. Everyone, myself, yourself, Nigerians, everyone needs to be worried. They kept borrowing and borrowing and borrowing. What are they using this money for? What about the fuel subsidy? I mean, that's the question for today. But we would leave it for our guests that will be coming in today. Like I said earlier, we'll be having a legal practitioner, Barrister Atta Adams, who would help us analyze the topic. So basically from Lagos today, we're still looking at the rising debts in Nigeria. The presidents kept borrowing and borrowing and borrowing. And what are they using it for? We don't know. So hopefully we get an answer soon.
All right, thank you. Of course, I can also assure our viewers that this is the same line of thoughts coming from our Abuja Network studio in the course of this conversation. So you stay with us and enjoy all that we have for you on the show. Well, over the weekend, two major international incidents one took place because it's gone. Maybe also is still ongoing. The other is within the borders of Africa continent, where terrorists have invaded Bamako, Mali. We hear the defense minister has been killed, his wife killed, his son killed, and of course the military junta in Mali is already engaging the militants. I mean, there's so much to talk about, so much to unpack on that issue. And then, of course, we also saw in the U.S. the correspondent dinner where there was a shooting, and President Donald Trump and, of course, his vice, J.D. Vance, they had to be rushed out of that particular venue. But the shooter was eventually killed, and his house is under siege in California already. But back home, the coalitions and coalitions, it has coalitions now coalesce.
Yeah.
Has been coalized, right? My God.
But the point is, ADC came on board as a coalition platform. The faction of PDP, some APC, and all of that, they came together to form the coalition, ADC. But we hear now that the opposition party are now a mega coalition to engage the APC and the present government to ensure we don't have a one party contesting the 2027 election. I mean, this is what democracy is about, yeah?
Yeah, I feel like all of this just goes to show, you know, the theatrics that characterizes the Nigerian political space, the struggle to not tilt into a one-party system, because the opposition probably sees how strongly the government of the day holds power. And I would say, or you know, it's popular opinion that the opposition is threatened and not wanting, you know, to go down to the government of the day. And also, over the weekend, talking about coalitions, we also got to see within the ADC, Kwakwaso and Peter Obi, according to news agencies and reports, are going around rallying northern leaders, you know, for probably a joint presidential ticket. So these are just all the theatrics that stem from looking up to 2027. It's definitely a lot to unpack.
Yes, a lot to unpack, yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So the event was held in Ibadan, and in the political system of history in Nigeria, it is one major state that has political undertone to it, with what happened previous years up until now. And we saw the likes of Seyi Makinde, who hosted them, Atiku Abubakar, in fact, major political bigwigs in the opposition party there. And aside them deciding to bring out a single presidential, you know, aspirant for the 2027 general election, they also had 5 demands. They want the INEC chairman, Professor Joash Amopita, to be removed, and they are also insisting that the timing for the primaries be extended from May and give them an ample time to, you know, figure out themselves. But now the question really is, how would they be able to achieve all of this? Their major concern is to fight strongly the warring party state system that it seems to be brewing up. And according to Seyi Makinde, who said igniting things over the weekend, that even got the APC, the party itself, the presidency, respond to it, where he talked about one incident that happened a couple of years ago in the 90s, and he said that we probably might be seeing that the presidency did react to it, but he also did state that it is not a case of a political ambition and interest by one person. It is a collective responsibility to help Nigerians fight what it seems to be a one-party system here. And even though Felix Moka yesterday at a sister station said that they are not scared because they have over 31 state governors, so why should they be scared? It is just the opposition parties that are, you know, accusing them wrongly of being the main cause of all of the political shenanigans that has been going on in their parties.
Okay, so our fingers are crossed, and watch how all of these will pan out ultimately, building up to 2027. If you just join us, it's still TMI on the ITV network. We'll take a break here. When we return, we'll look at what the papers are saying, and then we'll bring our guests on board as we unpack the conversation on the rising debt profile and, of course, what needs to be done, what can be done, and then of course insights into what some have described as the reasons behind the removal of the Minister of Finance, talking about Wale Edun. Stay with us.
Thank you very much for joining us on the program, Healthy Living. What is the kidney?
The kidney is an excretory organ in the body, which is for metabolism.
Tuberculosis affects many organs in the body, but the common ones it usually affects is the lungs.
Epilepsy is a neurological problem.
Okay.
It is an injury in the brain which causes someone to begin to convulse, to go into fits.
It is curable, but the cure is a long-term thing.
If you eat well and avoid those risk factors that will make your immunity to be down, then the risk of contracting tuberculosis will be reduced.
If you're healthy, then you're wealthy.
Benin Cultural Dance, a unique dance and quality dance steps of the Benin people. This dance is a vibrant mix of traditions, arts and beliefs, deeply rooted in the country's diverse ethnic groups and their rich history. The dance has artistic expressions depicting the people's history. Benin people have been famous for bronze and brass work, some of which is said to date back from the 13th century, especially ivory and wood carving. In Benin, the people dance to show respect, honor, dignity, which they honor. They dance to show royalty, as natives are seen in their numbers around their body depicting the symbol of kingship.
ITV, certainly the best. ITV, certainly the best.
Good morning and welcome back to This Morning on ITV TMI. We're now in our newspaper review segment where we take a look at the headlines on our national dailies. We begin with Daily Sun. And on the headline there on Daily Sun, it talks about 2027. NDC offers Obi Kwakwaso joint ticket. Gives duo 2-week window to join party, be its presidential, vice presidential candidates. Moving on, it also headlines PDP factions clash over Makide's Ibadan speech, and that's on page 6. On the business scene, Daily Sun headlines, CBN tightens noose, mops up 2.8 trillion naira from banks. The SAP rather says moves to stabilize FX markets as demand rises. Also on Daily Sun, on page 27, Lagos governorship race intensifies. Aspirants jostle for endorsements. Also, no fresh tax on vehicles, says the federal government. That story is on page 25. Fuel price hike feared as Trump cancels second Iran meeting, marketers fret. Read all about that story on page 21 of Daily Sun. Away from that, its headlines, Varsity, VC laments high rates of ritualists in Nigeria when students. And that's on page 26. Well, that's about it for Daily Sun.
The Daily Trust newspaper is up next, leading with an interesting headline that says, long wait, staff shortage, crisis in public hospitals worsens. And this is really pathetic. Away from that, underwear display, political campaign hits a new low in Kano. Now, this interesting story trended over the weekend. I don't know if you saw it with women actually.
Oh, yes, I did see it. It's so funny.
We're going to have it on TMI Socials today. It was so hilarious to think that they've moved
at
from
At some point, I just thought it was something.
AI?
Yeah, I couldn't make sense of it. Like, why did they come up with that?
Oh my goodness. On a hilarious note, someone actually did say that. Just
Yes.
imagine you get home with that and your husband.
And you know, the images where the picture is put, you will see it on TMI Socials.
Oh my God. Away from that, Sokoto onion farmers lose 10,000 bags in fire in 1 week. You get details of that on page 33. Abuja's chaotic transport system drains the residents on page 6. Outside Nigeria, Nigerians face rising threats in South Africa. Ask federal government to act on page 5. We really do not know what's going on over there in South Africa, and also Ghanaians too demanding for Nigerians to return back to their country. Well, moving on page 25, still on Daily Trust, delayed flights as jet fuel shortage deepens. Aviation fuel hike, stakeholders seek government intervention to save 2026 Hajj. Stillace gamble, APC imminent loss in Nasarawa State. That's on page 11. And I think that's all the Daily Trust have for us this morning.
Moving on to the Guardian newspaper. A major headline there is from the business scene. It says, banks grapple with asset quality, validation tests after 4.65 trillion naira capital. And that's on page 6. Moving on, it says, NCAA raises concern over domestic airlines service failure. Read all about that on page 3. On the political scene, it headlines, NDC offers Obi Kwakwaso joint presidential ticket. Also on The Guardian, APC crisis festers as 5 states face exclusion from primaries convention. And that's on news page 3 also. Moving on, ground handlers may suspend operations over airlines' 9 billion naira debt. Seems like it's a thing across Nigeria now, the whole death thing. Sure. All right, moving on to the security situation. Alleged coup plot. Detained colonel sues federal government. Demands 500 million naira damages. That's on page 9. Also, on The Guardian, backlash over Alausa's stand on social science courses amid widening job crisis. In Lagos State government signs power purchase agreements with 3 IPP firms. On page 7, you get to read all about that. Moving on, Serap NGE sue NBC over threats to sanction broadcasters. Now that's on page 5. Away from that, on 2027 election, it headlines, Group predicts APC likely to lose in Nasarawa. And finally, cracks hurdles in united opposition hand as APC strategic edge ahead of 2027. You get to read all about that on page 6 of the Guardian newspaper.
The Punch newspaper is up next, leading with Ibadan meeting. PDP, ADC blocks reject joint presidential tickets. Subrider says, Wike camp, Atiku mark misled by impostors. Kachiku, ADC faction, Labour Party disown meeting. APC questions Makinde's fitness for office after Operation Retirement. Well, all of that and more on page 2 of the Punch newspaper this morning. NNPC refineries will never work again. Who was speaking? Former President of Nigeria, Olusegun Obasanjo, has still been on the stance with the state of our refineries here in Nigeria. Well, you get details of that on page 39. Fuel price hike. Airlines plan Thursday shutdown. Still on page 39. Atiku warns against suspending campaigns in Borno, Benue, and others on page 44. Well, away from that, we have other interesting headlines this morning. INEC Gabam recognition sparks fresh SDP row on page 44. Why OAU declined venue for Peter Obi lecture? Who is speaking? The management has that to say on page 8. Another UK-based Nigerian found dead at workplace on page 4. Now, interestingly, on the front page of the Punch newspaper, still following other national dailies this morning, we have a picture of our president and also managing director of Julius Berger as regards a courtesy call at the State House in Abuja on Wednesday. Well, that's all the Punch has for us today.
Now on New Telegraph, which is our next point of call, the major headline there is on the alleged coup. Accused officers to be arraigned. Take plea May 8th. And that's on the investigation. The subrider says Mali's defense minister killed as coordinated attacks hit military targets. Read all about that story on page 3 and 4 of New Telegraph. Away from that, on the political scene, primary deadline, NDC woos Obi Kwakwaso with presidential ticket. Subrider says, why I declined invitation to opposition summit, and that's said by Shori. On the Ibadan summit, it headlines, PDP defends Makinde over witty comments. Subrider says, place governors under watch. APC tells security agency. Still on page 3 and also page 5. Also on New Telegraph, it headlines, Adeleke approves implementation of ASU FGN Pact for Uni Osun. Read all about that on page 8. On the foreign scene, it's on the Washington shooting. Gunman planned to target top Trump officials, says the Attorney General. Also there on New Telegraph newspaper, it headlines, on the 2027 polls, concerns over federal government's 135 billion naira budget for litigation. The subrider says huge budgetary allocation for suits will endanger electoral system, and that's said by lawyers. on page 14 and 16. Away from that, Serap editors sue NBC over threats to sanction broadcasters for expressing opinions, and that's on page 2. On the aviation crisis, it headlines, carriers insist on shutdown as meeting with federal government ends in deadlock. It goes on to say, we're pouring water into baskets, and that's said by Uriesi. Mumba, price increase will plummet passenger traffic. And still on the 2027 polls, it says mixed grill for second-term governors. Senate retirement on the cards amidst secession battles. That story is on page 9, 10, and 11. And also anemia in older adults linked to higher dementia risk, and that's shown by a study. It's on the health scene, and it's seen on page 30 of New Telegraph.
Now, finally, the Vanguard newspaper leading with an interesting viewing debate that says NASU, CONUA, NAPTAN to federal government, you can't scrap irrelevant courses in VASTIs. Well, subwriter says, warns students against taking loans to pursue worthless course. Let course evolve, CONUA speaking. Relevant, irrelevant courses can't be determined on face value. Who's speaking? NASU. There is a need to tread softly. NAPTAN speaking, and of course no response yet from ASU. On page 9 you see details of that interesting conversation. While still on Vanguard this morning, Nigerian Guild of Editors, Serap sues NBC over media gag order on page 21. And finally, how Nigeria can reverse 2.5 trillion naira agri export deficit. Guardian on page 13 has that to say.
All right, well, that is about it for our newspaper review segment. And up next, we'll be looking at the most consequential part of this program, the discussion segment, where we'll be talking about borrowing under President Bola Tinubu and the economic impact, reviewing Nigeria's rising debt profile. That segment will be handed by Dr. Sonny Duke Okosun. There's a lot to unpack. Don't go away.
ITV, certainly the best. ITV, certainly the best.
Thanks again for rejoining us on the program TMI on the ITV network. We get our conversation segment on course as we take a look at Nigeria's borrowing, particularly under President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, on the road to 2027. The question is it a debt trap or a development model? Nigeria's debt has hit 159.28 trillion naira. That's 66,250 naira per every Nigerian. Man, woman, child. Today we ask, is President Tinubu's borrowing a bridge to growth or a debt trap ahead of 2027? And looking at the 2026 budget, total spending 68.3 trillion naira. But here's the worry. Debt servicing alone takes 15.81 trillion naira. And we'll look at all of those other data and statistics as we move along on this conversation. But let me welcome our guest here. Destiny Owobu is the development expert and analyst. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me. Good morning.
We also have joining us from Vancouver in Canada, Dr. Osaze Iyoha. Doc, it's always a delight to have you join us and engage issues of this nature. Good to have you on the show.
Good morning.
Okay, I'm not so sure I heard you loud and clear, but I just want to believe you are there, and then of course we're going to have this conversation. Yeah, let me start with you, Destiny.
Yeah.
Looking at the debt profile, I mean, there are huge concerns that subsidy removal was supposed to be a blessing, which means the government will have more money, and those monies will now be deployed for infrastructure development, all that government wants to do. The question is, why is our debt profile rising by the day? We're borrowing more by the day. And could it be that this whole conversation around subsidy removal is a hoax?
Actually, the debt profile is not really increasing as shown in the Naira value. Basically, what is happening is the value of the Naira is falling. And so, technically, when you value the debt in the Naira, it will run into trillions, like 159 trillion you mentioned just now. So the big problem here is we do not have a debt problem. What Nigeria has is a revenue problem. Our debt is unsustainable given the fact that our revenue profile is very low. What the government is basically doing with the debt is we are paying about 75% to 80% of our revenue, using it to pay the debt. So that's where the problem really is. It's not because we are incurring more debt. If you check the dollar statistics, you see that the debt has not really increased beyond $5 billion since the administration came in. The last administration left the debt at 87 trillion. This administration is leaving it at about 159 trillion. That's because we are not considering the Naira value. The Naira has fallen by 5 in the last 3 years. And so when you denominate debt in dollars, because the Naira value is falling, it will appear as if it is larger. But in absolute terms, the debt has not really increased significantly compared to what it was earlier. So the biggest problem we have here is not mainly a debt problem, but basically a revenue problem. We are paying much of our debt with a margin of about 75 to 80% of our revenue. And when you service debt at that rate, the problem you're going to have is that you're going to have less money for capital expenditures, less money for recurrent expenditures, and things like that.
All right. Let's get your take on this, Dr. Iyoha. Our guest here talked about the fact that in terms of Naira value, the debt is not really high. But there are concerns that while the dollar denomination of our debt is lower, the Naira equivalent is higher. Do you have, these sentiments as well?
Yeah, I don't know if you can hear me now, Dr. Sonny.
Loud and clear, yeah.
Good. Yeah, so I would want to agree with Destiny to the middle point, but not completely. So the point is we've continued to take debt. So it doesn't matter whether this is not a competition between Buhari administration and Tinubu administration. The point is the Naira was devalued. So now we have a larger chunk of debt to pay. So it's 159 trillion. I get the technical part from which Destiny Owobu is coming from. But the point is, whoever is going to pay this debt, our children, our grandchildren, are going to be paying 159 trillion. The technical explanation of because exchange rate increased from 700 under Buhari to 1,500 at Tinubu, really it's almost inconsequential because what we have on our paper is that we have 159 trillion, and that means our debt doubled from Buhari's time to this time, and it's simple. There's so much focus on fuel subsidy removal. This administration removed 3 subsidies just because fuel is almost like the breath that we because of the importance in our life. So there's so much focus on it. They removed the exchange rate subsidy by completely liberalizing the exchange rate market, which I've not seen anywhere in the world where it is done. there's always some level of managed float, even in the US. There's nowhere where the exchange rate market is completely liberalized. So that was the reason, that was what has led to the fact that we now have 1,500 naira, which whatever we borrow, whenever we take our loans, we take it in dollar. So you multiply by 1,500 or 1,400 as the case may be. So that's why we have that amount. So exchange rate subsidy was removed. But how did we come to take this debt? The point is, the government was never going to avoid taking debt. And it's simple. Let's not even be too technical about economics. The point is, from 2022 budget, in 2022, the government put in its budget that the oil production is going to be 1.69 million barrels per day. Actual production was 1.4. So that means there was a shortfall of about 3 million barrels. So also the benchmark oil price was $75. So $75 times 1.69 million barrels per day, that was what government worked with as its revenue. But we ended up producing just 1.4 billion times the oil market dropped about $70. So there was a shortfall. And in terms of naira value, that shortfall was 7.8 trillion. In 2024, the government also put an oil production benchmark of 1.78 million barrels per day. But production was about 1.3, 1.4. So that's another shortfall of about 4 million barrels times 75. This time it was $77 that the government put as expected oil market price. So there was another shortfall of about 8.2 trillion. In the 2025 budget, the government put oil production benchmark as 2.06 million. And we only ended up there about 1.6 million. So that was a shortfall of another $4 million, 4 million barrels per day. That year, in naira value, it was about 10.5 trillion. So when you add these three shortfalls in these different years, we have about 36 trillion naira that were shortfalls. That alone is almost like a whole year budget. So where was government going to find this 36 trillion? It was always going to borrow. And remember that as revenue, as we were dropping down this revenue, these shortfalls, because of the government's overambitious benchmarking of oil production and price, our spending was not reducing. During this same period, salaries were increased. During this period, the VP's quarters was built. During this same period, we bought a private jet. We had the largest cabinet probably in the entire world. We had the trips, the First Lady's office, we heard she spent about $1 billion on just her trips. So we continued doing wastages. If you remember that report that came out the last time, I think I have the figures here, that we were told that the Nigerian police bought 7.10 cartons of Titus for 8.2 million naira, 10 cartons of Milo for 8.52 million naira, cream crackers, 85 cartons for 22.2 million naira. I'm sure you remember that report that came out just some few months ago. So our spendings continue. So when you are buying 85 cartons of crackers for 22.5 million, so expenses increased. Meanwhile, our revenue kept on.
Okay, let me pause you there, Dr. Saz. I'll come back to you in a moment. Looking at our capital projects, talking about roads, power, hospitals, expect to get 26 to 32 trillion naira. The debt slice is almost as big as a capital slice, and the World Bank says we only complete 30% of those projects. So where is the new borrowing going to? We have two major legacy projects, talking about the Sokoto-Badagry superhighway, expected to get $516.3 million loan. That loan has not been approved yet. And then you have the Calabar-Lagos Coastal Highway, which is gulping about 15 to 16 trillion naira spread across 21 billion naira borrowing plan. But here is the big question. These are huge projects, and you are saying the problem is revenue. In 2025, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu told Nigerians that the country has met up with its revenue target for the year. A few days later, the sacked Minister of Finance came out to say, I mean, we're just 10 trillion naira in terms of what has come in so far. So what do you make of these seeming inconsistencies? And then there's also concerns of contracts being overinflated.
Yes, I think the issue we have there is a matter of transparency and accountability and matter of public corruption. You know, sometimes there's a Fiscal Responsibility Act that talks about how to manage public resources. There's also a Public Procurement Act which says that before projects, contracts are awarded, they should follow due process. Okay, and the argument on the papers is that most of these big trillion-naira contracts were awarded without following due process. They were not advertised as envisaged by the Act. They were not bidded for by companies so that we can see competing value. And so the politicians just simply awarded these contracts without following the due process. And most people argue that some of these projects should have been cheaper if there was a competing bid process. And there are other companies that would have done them for cheaper value. For example, the $16 trillion project that they're handling. Some companies have even stated that they could do that for about 7 to 8 trillion. That's a major 6 trillion difference. Yes. But beyond all this, I don't want us to, with respect to Dr. Osaze, I don't want us to look at it from only when you hear trillions and trillions and trillions, what comes to the average Nigerian on the street is, that's a lot of money. Where is it going to? But that's a very basic way of looking at it. A country the size of Nigeria, the total budget of Nigeria is about $60 billion. That is the budget of running some universities abroad. That is the budget of running some basic local governments abroad. For a country the size of Nigeria, our revenue is too small. It's not even up to the budget of some companies like Apple and others. So, like I said, it is true that we are borrowing, but if you look at global standards of borrowing, our debt to GDP ratio is within safe limits, given the size of our economy, within safe limits. Where we always have that problem is debt to revenue ratio. We do not have enough. A monoproduct economy like Nigeria, selling only crude oil and funding its budget, 75 to 80% of its budget using oil, is going to always be miserly. So that is why some economists have said, since we have already small income, which is very small, to be very honest, to grow this economy, you need at least 4 to 5 trillion US dollars to spend on this economy to grow it at a very fast rate. But we are trying to turn around $50, $60 billion over many years. So debt in finance helps to leverage, to help you solve the problem of revenue. So leveraging debt means borrowing at least to cover most of your expenses. Okay. And then there's also the other argument of saying, okay, now that we know that we have a revenue problem, we must first of all agree, because when you mention trillions of naira, we must forget that the naira is 1,500 to $1. By the time you deflate it to what it really is, the whole thing itself, the whole gamut of public spending, is not up to $50 billion. So people are saying, even with that small resources that you have, there should be reports, there should be transparency in how it is spent. There should be some, the government should show that it doesn't have a largesse to spend. The government should show by its behavior that it has low income. So that is where Dr. Osaze comes in. The president buying a yacht, buying the beast for the president. Nigeria is too poor for its leaders to be using living such outlandish lifestyles or trying to imitate. The US president uses a beast. Nigeria is a third world country. It's among the 13th poorest country in the world. It has no business using the beast, buying yachts or presidents, buying private jets, and spending those billions and billions that they talk about. Nigeria should be tightening, and that tightening means it should start from the political class. Where we see now is that there's a divide between the life of the political class and the life of the people. So we must recognize as a country that it's a poor country. We must also recognize that we have limited funding, and because of that, we need to trim our spending. I mean, at all levels of government. Try and imagine this 36 state government, 704 local government chairmen and councillors. Imagine the cost, the political cost of running this country. It is too much for the amount of money that we earn as a country. But technically, if you check the world standard, Nigeria has not borrowed beyond its capacity. What Nigeria has, the problem we have is that we don't have enough revenue. There's even between capacity to generate money and the generating money itself. For example, in every part of the world, taxes contribute about 60 to 70% of the revenue of government. But in Nigeria, taxes do not contribute up to 10% because we are a monoproduct economy. We focus on oil. In fact, the incidence of our tax falls externally. It means Nigerians have not been taxed enough. That's not to mean the tax is not already high. what I mean is our economy is not structurally dependent on taxation.
Okay.
And that's what I wanted to say.
Yeah.
We pay enough tax, but the tax we pay is informal tax.
Yeah.
In fact, Nigerian tax, by my definition, is one of the highest tax in the world because the average Nigerian has to provide water for itself, provide security for himself, provide electricity and everything.
Roads.
So I call that in Nigeria. It's peculiar to Nigeria because each citizen has to pay a lot. But we are saying the structure of our economy is not so well diversified that government can say, let's taxes move up to 30%.
Okay.
While other sources, we have not got it to that point. And secondly, the subsidy removal only added 40% to the income of Nigeria. Most people they just talk about subsidy removal. It's only 40% added. 40% progress in the last 3 years in revenue. Okay, but notice too that the allocations to state governments tripled.
Yeah.
In most cases. So look at what's happening here. You increase your revenue by 40%. Because of the subsidy removal, and then you have to transfer it to 36 state governments, triple. Most states get triple what they used to get before. So what we expect to be saying is that if your revenue has tripled as a state government or as a federal government, what should be happening is that we should be going towards reducing our expenses as government and then expanding it into development projects, things that return money in the future. And so that is where the role of power comes in. What I would have loved to see is that the federal government is spending a huge chunk of its capital budget to try to boost power in this country. Because anything we are doing is a pebble in the ocean. What we need to be doing is boosting productivity from the private sector. And central to that is power. If we don't get these three things right, no matter how the borrowing we do, we just simply have rolling debt forever. We are in a debt loop. But what we need to do is to diversify the economy away from borrowing, and what we are doing, we are simply funding our economy with borrowing and oil, and they are cycling themselves there. Okay. So what we need to do is to diversify, and for that to happen, we must get power right, must get our port system right, must get our transportation right. Those three ingredients, if you put billions of dollars into them and you are serious about developing that part, other sectors will catch on very fast. But we are not doing that. Instead, the government is spending more of its money recycling it among politicians. What's the guarantee that if you send 3 times the amount of money to a state government, they are going to use it? The state governments are getting far more money. When last did you hear of states having no money to pay salaries? That's because they get more allocations now. But we are seeing the states are not replicating the capital projects the federal government has in its vision. In fact, they see it most likely as a largesse, extra income. They are not being creative on how to use it. So like I said, we must go to the big picture. Get out of the emotion of saying we are borrowing. I told you in technical figures, this government, with respect to the previous government, has not borrowed more than the previous government. I'll give you an example. In Jonathan's time, the debt was just about 12 trillion. He left it from 6 trillion to 12 trillion. Buhari took it from 12 trillion to 87 trillion. That's times 5. Okay. And we understood why
this government has moved it now to 159 trillion. That's double.
Yeah, it looks double.
Yeah, year on year.
Yes, year on year. That's double. But that's not the objective way to look at it.
Okay, let me pause it. I'll come back.
I told you, the dollar price influences how we calculate these
I'll come back to Destiny Wabo. Okay, now here is the paradox. Government says dollar debt is down $19 billion since June 2023. Yet in Naira, debt is up 14.6 trillion Naira in 1 year. Dr. Saze, which number should Nigerians believe? And with 2027 around the corner, are these highways economies or just politics? With debt service now consuming 27% of our budget, deficit at 4.28% of GDP, the margin for error is thin. If oil doesn't hit 1.84 million barrels per day, or revenue falls short, more borrowing follows. So the question is, for 2027, are we building a future or mortgaging it? Now, I'm concerned by the fact that every Nigerian, so long as you are a Nigerian citizen, man, woman, girl, boy, child, you're owing about 66,000 plus from the 159 trillion naira. So we are all in this together. So let's get your take on this, Dr. Saze.
Yes, I like that. I like that part that you brought up, and that's where I'm technically not in agreement with what Destiny is saying. You know, this conversion of naira to dollars, it's something that I don't like to do. I hate to do it, because we don't earn our revenue in dollars. We don't print dollars. So telling us, either government or economists, telling us that, oh, this 159 trillion is just about $100 billion, of which China's loan is this one's loan is, no, that's not the point. The point is that you are paying this loan in naira. You are going to, the revenue which you are going to make to pay this loan is in naira. Our future generations are not going to pay these monies in dollars. So it seems a bit deceptive when we continue to exchange the naira to the dollar and say, oh, it's very small. A good example is this. What is our service, debt servicing? It's about 59.9 trillion naira. So when you convert it to dollars, why is it that we say 72% of our revenue is going to debt servicing? What is debt servicing? Debt servicing is 15.9 trillion. Our total budget for the year is about 60 plus trillion. So 15 as a percentage of 60 is what? It's just about 10, 20%. But how come revenue is taking 72%? The debt servicing is taking 72% of just revenue. Meanwhile, the debt servicing as a proportion of the entire budget is just about 10%, but just 10%, 72%. So it shows us that it's the naira value that matters. We are earning through taxes. Oil revenue is completely zero now because we have done forward sales. This 1.4 million barrels that I say we produce a day, about 300,000 barrels is accrued back to loans that we took in the past. Afri-Exim, we took 3.3 billion from them. They are taking about 90,000 barrels a day. Do 90,000 barrels a day times 30 days. You have about 9 million barrels that leaves our shores every day that we are not getting revenue in return for. Aramco oil, they gave us $5 billion, and they are taking about 100,000 barrels every day. So we are losing about 300 barrels that is not coming to us. So it means that we are not earning our revenue in dollars. We are earning largely of our revenue in naira. And to the tax point that Destiny also raised, the point is this: we might have the lowest, tax to GDP in the world, but the point is that what is the purchasing power of Nigerians? There's a statistic that came, stat data that we saw last. They said 85% of Nigerians earn less than 100,000 naira. So let's do the dollar conversion, which most economists like to do. $100,000, 100,000 naira is just about $1,000. So if you are taxing, how do you tax such people? 85% is below 100,000, in less than $100,000. So the purchasing power has fallen. And when you increase fuel subsidy, what happened is that most Nigerians, their purchasing power also fell. And companies, they were not able to buy enough goods and services from companies. What happened also is that companies, their taxes also fell because they were making less revenue. Our government turned around and increased companies' income tax. So these companies are already struggling because of falling purchasing power. They are dealing with cost of production, diesel, and so on. So government turns around to increase their taxes again. So they are not able to, they increase prices, consumers' purchasing power further deteriorates. So it's a circle. So most companies left. I have a list that there will be no time. I have a list of about 20 companies that left from 2023 to 2026, 20 foreign companies. And that same stats data also said that 800 local companies, domestic companies in Nigeria folded up. So what does that mean? It means that consumers' purchasing power fell. 800 companies, you can imagine how many people they were employing. 20 foreign companies left, GSK, Unilever, PZ, some, even Shell. They sold most of their offshore, onshore assets. So our purchasing power reduced. So you cannot bring the tax analogy here. And so when you increase when you remove fuel subsidy, I get the Destiny's point that just only 4 trillion was added. Fine. But the fact is that the fact that you remove fuel subsidy, it killed the purchasing power of companies. Companies folded up, individuals lost purchasing power. And so what happened is that it's a multiplier effect. The government lost revenue because purchasing power reduced, CIT reduced, companies folded. So it was a backlash. It was just like a tumbling of resources. So the 16.19 billion which you are talking about compared to now is the exchange rate issue, which the government brought up. So we cannot divulge exchange rate from the naira. We are earning now. It's just like the security man, a security man who earns $10,000, 10,000 naira a month, comparing himself with a man who works in Shell that they are paying dollars. So he says the man in Shell bought a 2026 Lexus, and the security man is telling his wife, I bet I enjoy myself, may I go buy suya, not be make you die. This guy don't buy 2026 Lexus. Then you go and buy suya when you do not have money to even make a bar in your house. So that is the comparison between saying that our tax to GDP is less. The point is, what is our revenue earning? So purchasing power is completely low. The tax base should be increased. I heard government saying they want to, no, the tax base, but you can't even increase the tax base because what is the revenue earning of, look at businesses. MPRA is 26.5. Nigeria has the highest MPRA currently. So for a businessman, for him to borrow money in the bank, he will borrow at Zenith Bank at about 35%. The man in China will borrow at about 2% or 3%. So why do you bring this tax and now say Nigeria's tax to GDP is the lowest in the world? What is our cost of borrowing for our companies in Nigeria? So those kind of arguments don't work out. The point is that the country has a revenue problem, which he has said. We also have a debt problem, 157 trillion. So if government is not cutting, if we are not cutting our spending to match revenue, we'll continue to borrow. And no matter how we try to paint it, we are borrowing in naira and will remain indebted, because when we are paying these loans back, we are converting to dollars. And when you convert this huge naira to dollars, you get a very paltry amount. That's why we are spending 72% of our revenue. And most of these loan payments is on Eurobond, and so which you cannot default on. Yeah.
Dr. Saze Iyoha. Now, when you take a look at the 2026 budget, the question is, where is the 68.3 trillion naira going into? I'll just give you that breakdown. Debt servicing, which of some of our analysts here have talked about, 15.81 trillion naira, and that's about 27% of the total budget. Capital projects, 26.08 trillion naira to 32.29 trillion naira. That's about 45 to 47%. Recurrent non-debt, 15.43 trillion naira. That's about 23%. Statutory transfers, 4.80 trillion naira, about 7%. Visual note, of course, you look at debt servicing and capital slices, nearly equal size to show the tension. And this is where the major issue, because the World Bank says only 30% of capital projects completed. So that reflects what you talked about, that the challenge is not the borrowing. The challenge is the revenue to be able to get this done. Yes. And you've given some highlights on some of the things that needs to be done to address this. But one thing is very obvious. The government of the day is not slowing down on its spending.
Yes.
And then they have also, in a way, conscripted state governors into this by making more monies available to them, and even local government. You want to take it off from there?
Yeah, like I said, I would like to address this issue by asking 3 simple questions. What happens when you have a lot of things to do, but you don't have the money to do it? It's a simple question. You have, like I told you, we have $1 trillion problems to solve. $1 trillion. But we only have about $60 billion expected earnings. So how do you solve that problem? There's no shortcut. Number 2, what happens when you have $60 billion and then you are living the lifestyle of people who live in $23 trillion economies. That's question 2. That's where we find ourselves. The first problem is real. The second problem is equally real. Nigeria has no business trying to, our politicians are some of the highest paid people in the world. The US economy is about 23 to 25 trillion naira. Nigeria economy is not up to $500 billion, the gap is 65 times.
You're saying US economy is about
23 trillion
dollars. Okay.
The Nigerian economy is not up to $500 billion.
The whole Nigeria.
The whole Nigeria. The whole of Africa is just 2.7 trillion. So America's GDP is 20 times the GDP of Africa with 54 nations. We should recognize that we have no reason to compete with these people, the government, on lifestyle. I just give you a simple example. The president of Nigeria uses the Beast, one of the most expensive cars in the world. That's the same car the president of the US is using. He has a private yacht. We spend, when it comes to governance, we spend as if we are the Benjamins, but we earn like rats, but we spend like elephants. The third question I want to ask is this. Now we have the problem of how do you force development? That's because development is supposed to move in stages. But when you have so many expectations, I'll give you the problems that are collapsing on our government. One, we have a deficit of about 20 million housing units, giving our population growth rate of about 3%. So every year in this country, we are only managed to build 100,000 homes. And yet, we already have a deficit of 20 million housing units. That's a big problem, a time bomb waiting to explode in the next 20 to 30 years. Population is expanding, needs are expanding. Yeah. Number 2, population is expanding to 230 to 250 million, and yet we cannot generate more than 7,000 to 8,000 megawatts of power. Toronto in Canada generates at least 20 to 23,000 megawatts of power. Just one city in Canada. Okay, Harvard University, its total campuses generate about 10,000 megawatts. A university with all its campus system. Then a country the size of Nigeria generates 4,000 to 7,000 megawatts. How do you compare those two things? All right, and so we need to solve this problem. We need to get our power. Egypt generates 50,000 to 60,000 megawatts of power. Egypt, a smaller country. And how do you do that? How do you move from 6,000 to 7,000 megawatts to at least 70,000 megawatts, the capacity that can jumpstart progress in this country? You will see that there's no simple way to solve that problem. Those 3 problems are macro problems. I like the fact that the doctor is looking at how it affects Nigerians on the streets. I understand the
sentiments.
I understand that because he's looking at the micro perspective. Yeah. When you look at everything from the macro perspective, everything is wrong. It feels bad. Everybody's frustrated.
Yeah, because the concern is that government said we're removing fuel subsidy.
Yes.
And the reason we're removing fuel subsidy so that more money will be available to run government, life will be better, quality of life will be better, yes, health will be better. But would you say that's been done?
But that's the problem. The problem is that the government overpromises.
They shouldn't make promises.
They shouldn't make such promises. Okay. How do you think you can solve a country's problem like Nigeria by simply removing subsidy? It doesn't solve the problem. It's just a minute part of the problem. So
that's like a political statement.
It's a political statement. You must understand how much do we even generate if they remove the subsidy to 0, do everything. I just told you that the budget of Nigeria, subsidy or no subsidy, is just about $60 billion. Apple, one company in US, its budget to run every year is about $200 billion. They are promising to invest $1 trillion in the US in the next 5 years, $1 trillion. And then a country is rolling around $40 billion. Like I said, it's a revenue problem. If you are in the boardroom where you take board decisions, you see the big numbers, okay? People who work in the company see the micro numbers. They are interested in their salary, but they don't look at the big numbers. So let's take this ITV, for instance. When you are making decisions about capital projects, you see from your table, it looks different compared to the table of the average employee. You know, we are forgetting that government is on the table. They see the big numbers. And if you see those big numbers, there's only one question that will be on your table. Where do we get money to develop Nigeria? Question one, you must deal with that problem. Knowing, we must first of all recognize that Nigeria is a very poor country. People do not want to understand what that means. The statement, when you, like I told you, when you hear trillions, trillions, you see those many trillions they talk about, is a dot in what it's required to grow a country of Nigeria's size. Okay? Nigeria is a poor country. I mean it when I say so. It's a very poor country. How poor can a country be? It cannot even generate 50,000 megawatts of power. It cannot. 50,000 megawatts, that's how poor it is. It's not because we don't want to generate it. We don't even have the resources to do that. And the small resources we have as a nation, our politicians are spending it lavishly. They live like the Benjamins, like I told you. It's like you are living in a rich man's neighborhood. And you know you are a civil servant. And you want to live like the Benjamins in the neighborhood. That's the problem. So what we should be doing is a structural shift. If we don't address the structural problems, the big problems of Nigeria, what we are doing, this argument is about looking at it from micro perspective. You are trying to, it's like you are telling a family of 10 children how to manage 50,000. Do the math. You are telling a family of 10 children. Yeah. You are telling them, you see, if this man has spent 10,000, we can micromanage the 50 billion. It's a paltry sum. Okay? We are a country of 230 million people with multifarious needs. We need billions of dollars to fix the problems of this country. Not small, petty, how much do we spend? What we need to be doing, we need to squeeze ourselves in government and expand the private sector. And that requires us to spend trillions of dollars, not trillions of naira, trillions of dollars. But how would that happen without these three growth areas? I'm looking at the strategic progress of the economy. I'm not looking at the micro aspects. We may get lost inside that maze of 50. It's too basic to talk about. Let's look at those three sectors. Let's get power right. Let's get transportation right. And let's get our port system right and attract billions of dollars to this economy. The foreigners, the money we need to grow Nigeria will not come from Nigeria, cannot come from crude oil and others. We need to develop our steel sector. We need to develop manufacturing. We need to attract billions of dollars investments to this economy. And you can't do that unless you invest in these three areas. And I stand there, if I was the president, power, the government that is able to get that problem out, solve the power problem, then solve the transport problem. Transportation, Nigerians spend 65% of their income on transportation and food. In the US.
Yeah, but isn't that what the government is doing with these super highways, Sokoto, Badagry, Calabar, Lagos, coastal highways?
That's the vision the government is looking at. Okay. But then we are saying that that vision of federal government should be replicated by state governments at all levels. It's like when you throw multiple pebbles on an ocean, it can create a ripple effect. So the federal government, that money is spending, that Calabar highway is still a paltry sum. Like I said, we are distributing the national resources. State governments should be very particular about their capital projects. Okay. If all governments, 774 local government, 36 state governments, and the federal government move towards a certain agenda to grow the economy. For example, state governments can begin to look at ways to have self-sufficiency in power. You see, we're trying to use the national approach, using NEPA and things like that. Nigeria is too poor for that. Let each state government find to solve its power problem. It's easy to solve from under than to try to solve it from the top where there's limited income. So those state government, Delta state government, everybody's trying to get their own power. If we do that, it's faster to do that because they're closer to the people. Okay. They have micromanaged resources that they can handle. But if you try to do it from a central government that is poor, the economy is poor itself, it will not work. Okay. So where we are seeing here is that we are not seeing these developments replicated across all subnational units of government. Okay. And like I told you, we have no business living the lifestyles of the Americans. Nigeria is a poor country. We must recognize that. All right, we should be holding our politicians accountable. Okay. Why are you driving this car? Why are you spending this money for this?
So the point is, yes, this is very relevant for 2027. Yes. How do you think this will shape 2027? Are Nigerians knowledgeable enough to use this information as a benchmark to make decisions for 2027?
So that's the reason why I said Nigeria should stop spending so much time on YouTube and on TikTok and things like that. You have to be aware the big issues are at stake so that we know the right questions to ask. You need to be aware. Like I told you yesterday, emotionally, if you look at the debt, trillion, what sounds to the average person on the street is what this government is borrowing us the debt. Well, in the facts of it, it just simply doubled borrowing. The previous government took it by sixfold. But this is just double, and it's just about the
All right, let me quickly link up with Dr. Saze. Give me your parting shots as it relates to what government can do, and now that we've identified so much of all the problems and challenges, what can government do to address these issues? Tinubu, for example, our president, has a lot of legacy projects. I mean, the Sokoto-Badagry Highway, and then, of course, that road is a massive project. And then you also have the Lagos-Calabar Highway. The Sokoto-Badagry highway is going to cost about $516.3 million alone from Deutsche Bank. All right, and then Lagos-Calabar, that's already within the region of about 15 to 16 trillion naira. Even though there are misgivings about that money against the allegations of inflation of the contract sum, concerns have been expressed in that direction. But what can we do now we are here? What can we do to checkmate this? Your thoughts?
Dr. Sonny, it's unfortunate. I don't think there's anything. I think it's almost too late to. We made very, very fundamental mistakes, and I'm happy that I have my friend in the studio, because there were so many economists that came out and said remove subsidy, remove subsidy. Now I'm very happy at the questions that my friend has brought up. Now let's reverse those questions. They said we saved just only 4 trillion naira from removal of subsidy. So now let's turn that question the other way. So was it worth it removing fuel subsidy? If only what you gained was 4 trillion naira, because some of us were the ones shouting the end that leave the subsidy. So you gained 4 trillion naira from removing subsidy, because in 2022, the subsidy payment of 4.39. 2023, it was 3.39. So you gained 3 trillion and you lost massive foreign exchange. I'll give you a few lists of companies that left. GSK left, Bolt Food left, Jumia Food left, Kimberly Clark left, Unilever Nigeria, Sanofi. These are big multinationals. Total Energies divested their assets. Microsoft scaled down their operations in Nigeria. They closed down the African Development Center in Lagos. PZ Cousins, Equinox Nigeria, Shell, they sold their. So these are the few that ShopRite left the country. And the same statistics said that 800, listen to the numbers on the Duke Okosun, 800 local manufacturers folded up from 2023 to 2024. 800, they folded up. What were the reasons? When GSK, when ShopRite left, see the reasons they gave. They said, one, the Naira collapse. That was when foreign exchange rate subsidy was removed. Foreign exchange issue, inflation. These were the reasons. ShopRite, you can Google it. Naira collapse, foreign exchange shortage, inflation, power cost, import cost, difficulty repatriating profits back to their home countries, weak consumer spending. Look at weak consumer spending, difficulty repatriating monies to their foreign exchange, Naira collapse. These are all connected to the removal of fuel subsidy. So you gained 4 trillion naira revenue for removing subsidy, and you lost over 30 multinationals who left because diesel became expensive to run their businesses, and 800 companies collapsed. So now we keep crying that we have a revenue problem. Where will your revenue come from? Look at America that my friend is relating to. America, the biggest, and you can Google it, the company that earned the highest, that made the highest income in 2025 is Walmart. Just Google Walmart. Walmart is like ShopRite. I mean, Aramco of Saudi Arabia, as huge as that organization is, Walmart made highest income than Aramco. Amazon, these are Walmart is in Canada, it's in US, it's in UK. We don't have it in Nigeria. So I'm saying Walmart is a grocery company, it's a retail industry. So imagine a company that made the highest income in the whole world. How much tax that company will pay to the Canadian government? Do you know how much that tax that company will pay to the American government? So imagine you had that kind of company in Nigeria. if you had subsidy, at least diesel prices were low, then you go and borrow and fix power, because that's the main reason why they were leaving. So what happened is that you did not have power. These companies were buying diesel at 800 naira per liter. Then you now remove the subsidy again. Power for diesel, amount of diesel rose to about 152,000. So these companies left. And you are crying that you have a revenue. How do you make revenue? It's from foreign. See, look at Germany. Germany is the biggest economy in Europe. Why? Because they are the largest manufacturer in the entire Europe. Look at all the biggest car manufacturers, car companies. Look at Siemens. They are German companies. Look at Japan. Look at China. China is the largest economy in the world. Why? Because of manufacturing. So I'm not talking about micro. It's the micro that leads to macro. When you increase subsidies and these companies left and our purchasing power reduced, how do you get revenue? You get revenue from these companies that are within. But you drove them away when you removed subsidy on 3 different areas: on electricity, on exchange rate, and on petrol. So you added to their problem. And so I don't know. We are just scratching the surface. I think we may say it's too late in the day, but the point is that we have to now borrow to fix power. But how do you make the money to fix power? These high earners, these big companies. Do you know what Unilever will do in your economy? Do you know what GSK, the amount of tax those people paid? But you change them. So I think all the government can simply do now is to continue borrowing, because in the 2026 budget, our oil production benchmark is still 2.1 million barrels, Dr. Sonny, 2.1 million barrels. And we know we are producing just 1.5 million. And out of that 1.5, 300 is forward sale. So we have just 1.2. So it means that we are still going to borrow again. And when we borrow, our debt subsidy will also increase. So I really don't know what to suggest. We know the solution to the problem is simple. And you don't even need to be an economist to know that, is bring in investors, foreign investors. Simple. Anything other than that is zero. And with foreign investors come and buy diesel at 2,000, the answer is no. They won't. Are they going to buy when there is no power? Band A, the same government removed electricity on subsidy on electricity, and now increased band A consumers without necessarily increasing what they so you increase the payments that they are paying to you without necessarily increasing the capacity that they get. So I think for now it's just simply for us to keep borrowing, but be more financial disciplined. Channel this to Siemens, reach an agreement. Our president has traveled to Siemens, to Germany, and had consultation with Siemens many times, but it's all a pipe dream. We talk about this Lagos Coastal Express Road of 16 trillion. It's a waste. It's a useless project. What is the value added of that road, that coastal project? 16 trillion. It's a complete waste. The Calabar Coastal Way is a waste. What value does it add? I mean, so just ask me. So when Walmart hears that you have now fixed your Lagos Calabar Coastal, are they going to come into Nigeria? No. But if they hear that you have fixed power, they will come the following day. So we are just scratching the surface, and it's just difficult to profile. But the solution come into your economy, and that's fixing power without necessarily removing the subsidy, which we have removed. Let's say we have gone there, but fixed power. How do you do that? Only financial discipline will take care of that.
Thank you very much. I'll come back to you in just a moment. Now, with a debt profile of 159.28 trillion naira, even though Destiny doesn't like us to do that, rather we say it in dollar, but we don't spend dollar here, we spend naira. With a debt profile of 159.28 trillion naira, what it means is that every Nigerian is indebted to the tune of 66,250 naira. So it means that if a child were to be born today and is a citizen of Nigeria, he owes that money. Now, I need to get your perspectives on this, because every now and then we hear from government agencies, especially the revenue generating agencies like Customs, the Federal Inland Revenue Service, and all of these, they tell you they've exceeded their target for the year. Now, the major concern is that in all of these analyses that we have given, with all the dollar in billions and then in naira in trillions and all of that, the average man on the street just wants to be able to afford gari, eba, egusi soup, rice and beans. So I'd like you to take it from that perspective. But we'll take a short break. I'll be back with you in just a moment to continue this conversation on Nigeria's rising debt profile and the spate of borrowing by the current administration of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu. Don't forget the fact that borrowing is not a crime. In fact, while we eulogize countries like the United States, Canada, China, Japan, and what have you, we need to also look at their debt profile. You'll be amazed how much a country like the United States is owing big time. So it's not wrong to borrow. We're not condemning borrowing. We're saying we need to have an understanding, an explanation from government where all of these monies are going into. We'll be back with you in just a moment. Stay tuned. We'll be joining our Abuja Network studio right now, but let me thank Destiny. I'm sure we can do this again because this is an ongoing conversation, right?
Of course.
All right, then of course Dr. Osaze Iyoha joining us from Vancouver in Canada. Thank you so much for joining us, Dr. Osaze.
Thank you for having me, Dr. Osaze.
Okay, well, let's link up with Kadri, who is already on standby in our Abuja Network studio to continue our conversation on Nigeria's rising debt profile. What can be done? From Dr. Osaze here, there's nothing that can be done. The best that can be done is to keep borrowing and borrowing to salvage the situation because we have a revenue shortfall. Destiny Owobo says we need to look at some of the key component parts of the economy to reignite, to reintegrate, re-energize so we can get the country going. But while we're doing that, which of course may take some while, just remember that as a Nigerian, you owe 66,250 naira from the 159.28 trillion naira debt profile of the country. Kadri, over to you.
Yeah, what a discussion there, Doc. That many Nigerians have taken notes of all that have been said, especially by our seasoned guests. Yeah, it's no longer news that the borrowing keeps on increasing, and we're yet to see a government that will say on the fact we have some news from our various revenue gate, from the now Nigeria Revenue Service, Customs Service, and of course what is coming in from the non-oil revenue, and of course the oil revenues. The oil and gas sector is still bringing in huge amount of money, especially with the ongoing war in Iran. So why do we have to borrow? But that is something that any government will stop. Just now, of course, in 2026, here in April, about $500 million has been requested by the president, to borrow, and that will be used to finance some infrastructure, particularly road, Lagos, Badagry, Sokoto, and that. But all of what do we stand to benefit when we keep borrowing? Why can't the borrowing stop, especially when subsidy have been removed completely? Remember in 2012, 2011, 2012, or 2013, thereabout, when there was this the fact that the monies are increasing. FARC is sharing humongous sum of money on a monthly basis. These monies go across to all the states plus the FCT, and yet people say point hand at the center and say you are not doing well. Nobody is even asking the governors and of course
Onwa is rich in culture and traditions. The people are a mixture of traditional worshippers, Muslims and Christians. Onwa is located at the northern part of Edo State. It consists of 2 local government areas, that is Onwa West and Onwa East. It has a total number of 13 clans and 21 political wards, according to National Population Commission 2006 census. The population of Onwa people is put together at 251,686. The people love tradition and culture. Historically, the people ancestors in deep quest to hand down on their future children a society of love and friendship. The land of Onwa is inhabited by the people with common ancestry, language, religion, economic and socio-political ties. However, irrespective of their subtitle differences in language and culture, they share common traditions. The people are known for their hospitality. Onwa traced their origin to Benin Kingdom. As a result, for a man to find a comfortable place for living, the name Onwa was derived from the largest and longest river in the area, which is known as Onwa or Onwa. It means one who makes merry in affluence.
days, there comes the Ugemobo Festival, which the Oba celebrates outside the palace gate. A pavilion is built of red cloth where rites are performed to drive away all evil spirits still unsatisfied by the year's sacrifices. The Emobo Festival is to commemorate an event in Benin history which dates back to 1504 AD.
The successors most times abandon those projects and face their own because they also want to borrow, and of course we don't know why they continue to borrow. They also want to borrow and have their own project, continue with what they actually met on the ground. And we have seen that during the days of former President Goodluck Jonathan in office, there was a piece of legislation that attempted to criminalize abandoned projects. So, what is the assurance that when we borrow, purpose for is the money executed, the amount of is no longer.
The truth will be that for the Buhari 8 years, even if he said he did nothing, if we believe he did nothing and the nation got worse, one thing we must give to him is that he never abandoned the project. The roads contracts were given particularly by was to ensure that there was continuity. Think that with the arrival of Dave Umahi also, a number of works that have been done are continuation of projects. So in the 11 years or thereabout, we are in the almost 11 years this administration, we've had this Expressway had always been, it was on the budget at the time, but then disappeared maybe from about 1984 up until now that they are bringing it back up. Now, whatever money went on that time was Nigeria's money. Whether borrowed or locally generated, it has been tied down and it has not been useful. So I think that whatever, now, when you come to the projects becoming abandoned, we should still ask. We've had the National Assembly now continuously for 27 years from 1999. Should there still be abandoned projects in the constituencies where the 360 House of Rep members are coming from? And then they will not bring it up to limelight for everybody to see. It's from the National Assembly that we should know. These are the number of abandoned projects in the nation. And then insist on the executive prioritizing these projects to ensure that they are completed. So in a way, I think it is between the press, the Fourth Estate, and the National Assembly, the third arm of government, to ensure that these figures, these projects are in the public domain and are never allowed to be shoved aside until the executive reason to do something about it. It is easy for the executive to decide to cherry pick but it is the National Assembly in their oversight function that should ensure that they are not cherry picking at the expense of development. So the duty of the press owners to watch the vanguard of the people to ensure that these things from time to time are mentioned and spoken about. So it shouldn't just be left to the discretion of the executive. They put it there, of the way some projects that could increase employment, that could increase productivity, that could enhance agriculture will not remain abandoned.
Okay, Mr. Ben, you have to hold on. We have also someone in the studio who will now hear his own opinion concerning this issue of borrowing and what Nigerians, are expected from it in terms of benefit and in terms of growing the economy. So I have Karim with me. Abdul Karim Musa is a legal practitioner based here in Abuja, and good morning to you. Welcome. Yes, to expect from you in this subject matter, the legal implication, the legality behind borrowing. Why should this borrowing be? When is it going to end? What do we do? We see the direct effect on the lives of Nigerians. So let's hear your opinion.
Yes, good morning. Thank you for having me. Yes, you see, the borrowing that the present administration has embarked on, in my opinion, is a heinous crime against the Nigerian people. It is a grievous transgenerational offense against the Nigerian people. Because what this government has done is to plunge the unborn generation into a circle of debt without commensurate and corresponding results for the monies that are being borrowed. Since the inception of this government, trillions have been borrowed. As at the time this government took over power, we had a debt profile of about 87 trillion naira. As at today, it is about 153 trillion, and the government has not even spent 4 years. So it means that the debt that this government has accrued and accumulated in this short period, almost what existed for a period of 8 years of the previous government. And then the implication, this or the previous myself, is that the reason for the debt or the borrowing does not seem to be justifiable in the face of the achievements and the results that is expected from the Nigerian people. So I describe it as a crime against humanity because I'm not taking for purpose. A government that does not seem to take cognizance of the economic reality of the nation by way of their own expenditure cannot continuously borrow to impoverish the larger population and then subject the future of Nigerians to debt, live a life that's real. So debt are not taken to improve a lifestyle. Debt are taken to invest. From what we are seeing, there's no substantial investment that have the potency yielding future, so it is viable.
Yeah, but some persons will argue that by saying that some visible work on the ground in Lagos, Calabar, you look at Abuja, Kaduna, work ongoing on and then some part gaining some and see quantities of work ongoing. Some would really disagree. But the point is that when is this government, or when is government actually going to stop borrowing, especially when there is complete removal of subsidy?
Now, You see, this is very ridiculous. And why I describe it as ridiculous is that if you are borrowing money to execute projects, those the dependency of the loan, you should be able to repay the loan during the time within which during your tenure. So there is no loan, any loan you are taking that is exceeding the 4-year term that you have is illegal. It should be the government and
people say government is continuum.
Exactly, government is a continuum, but government is continuum in terms of tenure and administration, not in terms of idea and policy. So while a policy may be prior to a person, another government will come that policy, that project, or that idea that you have is not their primary, is not their priority. And in so that project is not their priority, there is tendency that they would abandon it or prioritize another project. But then by that time, you have already borrowed money to execute that project. So government will now be subjected, and the Nigerian people will be subjected to paying loans that are solely your idea. If you are borrowing money, it should be within, the repayment plan should be within the time you have to spend in office, and not that the project that
Not pass it on to a successor.
Exactly.
Okay, now let's go back to Ben Agunloye. Ben, are you still there?
Yes, I'm here.
Yeah, so what we know, the president met 87 trillion naira as debt, and now that has moved up to 153 trillion naira. And if you do the maths, you see that he alone borrowed about 3 trillion naira within 3 years. How do you feel about this?
Well, it sound good. However, if the borrowings are tied to developmental projects, again, if you remain where because you have money to do, next year, that thing that you did not do will still remain. And unfortunately, when you are at a point when you are stagnant, by the time all moved, even people that were behind you will now be ahead of you. So there is really no point standing in one place in life. So what alternatives do we have to borrowing for infrastructure? Because if the roads are not done and the people cannot move, then what happens? As of today, we have one of the highest post-harvest decomposition in the world for tubers. That is yam, cassava, potato. These are things we produce. But then, majority of them are damaged or decayed on the farm because there were no access routes. There were not sufficient infrastructure for processing. So when you put all that together, I think that we will come to see that yes, borrowing for infrastructure at stage we are, because we are working the right borrowing are done, are correctly executed, rest in the oversight function of the national
of time. Cut down this to mobilize a lot of resources and inject it for infrastructure rather than, to always go and borrow.
The question in the immediate is, what is the percentage of people that are not employed? If we think that, okay, the people that are employed are overbloated, what are the percentage of people that are not employed? How do we get them employed if we do not improve infrastructure? Of course, when you come to reducing side of governance, you would have known over time that I'm a fan of the parliamentary system, where some of the wastages today we have in National Assembly will not be there. Okay. But the next question will be, how do we live from where we are to possibly say, oh, let's become parliamentary nation, where National Assembly members will earn per sittings and not salary and gratuity.
Okay, let me hold you. Generate resource and then use it and go.
Certainly we can. Very disappointing the day. First thing when the removal of subsidy were promised. That I've never entered any CNG bus. I don't even know that if I have one.
How come? They're everywhere in Abuja.
I've not seen anyone. I recently got a complaint that the transportation system in Abuja is very poor because what constitutes major transportation system in Abuja is civil servants or workers who are going to work. That is why on public holidays when people are not going to work, if you have any business in town, you may not have good transportation on that day. So it is not even sufficient to argue. If there are CNG buses, it is not, insofar as I, an active Nigerian who go to work every day, have not even seen or even used one, it's sufficient proof that it is not enough for the Nigerian masses or the Nigerian populace. Compared to the subsidy that was removed, imagine the price of fuel being at 200 naira thereabout, and now almost 1,500 naira because of removal of subsidy and other attendant factors. So you cannot compare the hardship or whatever benefits or measures that are being paid to the hardship of compared when subsidy was being paid. Nigerians were enjoying more. So what I'm saying is, if you are removing the blockages you are talking about, certainly it should be, but this government is not doing that. Rather, they are pumping money to the governors for political purposes. That's a different
discussion.
Okay.
I must thank you so much for your time with us, Barrister Abdul Karim Musa. And of course, to our guest who is online, Ben, thank you so much for sharing your opinion concerning this issue of interest.
You're welcome.
All right, we now move to Lagos Network Studio for continuation of the program this morning on ITV.
Professional.
Thank you much. We're still on CMI this beautiful morning. Our guest is Barrister Atta Adams. He's a legal practitioner and also a multi-skilled professional. Hello, Barrister. Good morning.
Yes, good morning, and thank you for having me. You look unique.
Thank you so much. Thank you. So today we're still having the conversation we've been talking about from the Network Studio, Abuja Network Studio. The Nigerians growing amidst the removal of subsidy. And we saw that President Bola came into power. The first thing he did was to remove the fuel subsidy. I think it means that, okay, is remove this fuel subsidy so more money will come into the economy, you know, infrastructural and all of that. But now we see that it kept on borrowing and borrowing. And Nigerians are asking that that it's borrowing, where this money going to? I mean, I'm asking, you are asking, Barrister Atta, and a lot of times asking, Nigerian debt is rising sharply under plans funding infrastructure according to the president and economic reform with repayment growing and concerns over sustainability. The big question is whether this borrowing will deliver real economic benefits or create a pressure. That is what the citizen, the Nigerians ask. Atta, all Nigerians law, what constitutional provision regulates government borrowing?
Well, it's good that Nigerians have to ask, because by us, it is your right. It is right. It's everybody's right. Faculty. That's what good government entails. It's not a matter of something that we like a secret occultic society. It's good as a beginning to ask, request for accountability. And then we have the Freedom of Information Act, empowering to request for good government. That's number one. And then borrowing, we have institution. The provisions of the Constitution, particularly the exclusive list, empowers government to take up loan as a form of security to finance capital project. So for me, apart from the provisions of the Constitution, we have other bodies. National is equally there. That's a rubber stamp National Assembly, but to oversee and to reach the excess of any borrowing by the executive arms of government. But what we are seeing is the reverse. The government is on a daily basis. They are running it like they are running their priority. You can't even give account of the borrowing, the effect. We have not seen anything. Rather, it's the reverse. Nigerians are suffering on a daily basis. On a daily basis, the government is approaching the National Assembly for approval of loan. Is that how we're going to continue? It's unacceptable. I don't know.
So, this trillion naira to the debt stock. The president is requesting another $500 million. The Senate, they've not approved. And this is the quotes in a lot of Nigerians talking, saying if you removed subsidy, you know, according to you, help boost the economy. Borrowing. Are we going to be, with all these amounts that Nigerians owe, that Nigerians or the president is actually borrowing, we are going to pay money to the next administration. And Nigerians are, I mean, at this point, we should be worried. We should be worried because we are all Nigerians. Seeing that the president wakes up one morning and tells you that, oh, okay, it needs the Senate approval for amount of loan that they want to, it's an amount of loan of money, you know, it keeps, so we need to be worried about it. What do you think?
Yes, I'm worried. Everybody is worried because the experts and professionals that came on board recently that by the debt implication so far, each Nigerian is assigned to about 1 million thereabouts. So apparently, as you are seated here, you are owing a particular coin to a institution and they are competition in your name. So at the point, you recall that a country thereabout, was it China or a particular country, came and made an enforcement on one of our property recently. Is it last 2 years or sometime thereabout? So for me, I think that the government is not sincere. It is not sincere as to the borrowing. Whether they are running it as a private entity, they are running it to finance, they are seeking for loan to finance their election, the forthcoming election. Nobody. As I'm speaking to you right now, there are procedures to which you can seek approval from the national. But the reverse is, look at the speed assembly is approving the request for the loan as if they are married. But if it comes to something that borders on the welfareism, you and I and every other Nigerians, this government is not concerned about it. This government is not perturbed about the welfareism of Nigerians. But if it comes to borrowing, whether we benefit from the proceed, whether we give a bogus amount of interest to their personal benefits and their cohorts, you will see them, they will quickly smuggle into the National Assembly, and then instantly you see approval. Other things that, for example, we don't have power supply all over the Federation. I don't they borrow to finance to cater for that. And let us see what I can. You don't just borrow cosmetics. It's not done.
So,
bad. You agree with me that for a nation to survive, the power supply, electricity supply is very, very. Foreign companies are relocating back to their country. They are relocating back to a neighbor country, and then you are here telling me for development. What development? That you don't have power supply. What development are they talking about? The system is bad, is porous. Is it the development of their stomach infrastructure, or what are they about? Not in support of the excess and reckless borrowing from the government. They should have respect for constituted their procedure. There is a law borrowing. The law is that any borrowing that the interest will be of excess, the government should not embark on that borrowing. That's number one. And then number two, the fact that the procedure for the approval of the loan must go through the proper channels. Don't just sit and then wake up overnight and run your bedroom exercise, and then you now approach the National Assembly, and the National Assembly is readily available. If it comes to anything that borders on the approval of loan, the Senate President is readily available for Mr. President. How you run government, you are not even concerned about what people are saying. People are complaining about this and that. All that you are good at doing is just to come on air, you just give stories and everything. You are not disturbed.
But this $516 million loan that the president is requesting for, the Senate hasn't approved it yet.
Whether they have approved it, they have planned their game plan. They are just waiting to approve it. They have been for a series of assignments. How effective have they used that money? It's not by the borrowing. Every government all over the world, they borrow to survive, even the States of America. But what is important is how well and how effective do you utilize that money? That is what is. You don't just borrow. Saying to borrow is bad, but excess borrowing, which without getting the fund, that's what I'm condemning. Government borrowed, even the Buhari borrowed. Look at, there was time they borrowed money to fund the project. That's Abuja-Lokoja Highway. That road is still there for more than 20 years. That is not yet completed. Is that the people you take them serious?
And they borrowed money to fund that project?
Yes, our government are the most serious people on earth. You take them to your own. It's only their cronies. It's only their cohorts, their co-politicians who are benefiting from them. Those are the people that are singing their praise and worship over the world. Yeah, this, Mr. President, is the best thing that happened. Where did it happen? Is it the hardship you want to talk about? Is it the unemployment that this government have I will not. There is no good thing that is coming from them. The student loan is calm. People are not benefiting from them. This is the same government that came on board and said, "Oh, don't give you a letter. Force a bit of vote using to find their finances."
So with all those things you've been saying, we're still seeing a couple of defections. I mean, the APC already has won with them. I mean, they're still joining the APC with all those things you're saying that, the present government is doing what they're supposed to do, and with defections.
That is a point I'm making. The opposition is no longer strong. They are making the opposition so weak. And that is the point I'm making, to the extent that they are now forming like a circle within themselves. In such, what do they come in? God do not allow them. It will not happen. It will not. Nigerians are ready. Nigerians are going to come out massively to fight and defend their vote. It's unacceptable. It will not. It will not. Some of us who are strong advocates and respect for constitutionality and the provisions of the Constitution, what we are saying is that Nigerians should be given opportunity to vote any party of their choice. I'm not saying that all of them are saints. It's the same people. It's the same people. You see Alhaji Atiku Abubakar, who is now a strong opposition leader in ADC that you want to talk about. He has been contested for years, for the past 20 years, more than 20 years. Is he Peter, who have been governor over time, and others, they are still the same. And then is he President Bola, who have been in the game. More importantly, who enjoy the democracy, is now frustrating the democracy under his watch. It's unacceptable. He has to ensure that free election is conducted 2027.
I mean, that's why we have the next chairman, Josh Amopisa. Even the EDC members, they are thinking that he's on the president's side, is supporting the president and calling for his resignation.
The exhibition and the head of the INEC chairman over the years, over the short time, clearly show that he does not want a free and fair election. He does not want a fair election. How can you wake up overnight and then you now remove the leadership of a particular party from the portal, from the INEC portal? Where is it done? At what point did you make that resolution? So you now see that as now, up to date, from now to next month, May, thereabout, the election is being conducted. As I'm speaking to you now, the leadership of most of the opposition party is being subject of the Supreme Court. So is it that they are going to meet up the requirement of the court in any division? We are
on this level.
According to our politicians, their mindset is that just come, borrow your own, and then whatever you can do, leave it like that and go. That's what they have clearly shown. This saying that Nigerians are complaining now, we complain in the same vein during the immediate, what is it called, president. And now this man is now, he claimed to have subsidy, continues to borrow. When the bird perches on a rope, he must be ready to dance with a rope. You can't eat your cake and have it. It's unacceptable.
Okay, let's talk about the fiscal ability and compliance point. Does Nigerians' current borrowing align with the Fiscal Responsibility Act?
Yes, the Act, Section 41, thereabout, of the state that the government should only borrow for what? Human development and capital what? Expenditure. Not borrowing to satisfy your selfish interest. And that is the more reason why the law is there. The law is not there as mere cosmetics. It must be followed. And even the same law states that government should not on any law. The interest is excessive. You know, you look at it and you correlate it. And for me, I don't think that the government is complying with the provision. So far, so good. And they have clearly shown that, we are not even disturbed about the provisions of the law. That's what is happening. So that is why these people rest for the law. Otherwise, the law is not just there for you to be doing it on a basis. You must come. We are not monkeys, zombies. We must comply with the provisions of the law. That is why those laws are there. So for me, they may apply with it because procedure. There is even the debt management office. Debt management office with the loan, with the purpose of the loan, and then through the minister, and then with Mr. President and everything. Before it's they now present it to the National Assembly. I used that recently I comply. And my major sympathy and concern is for Nigerians. More importantly, that the National Assembly, they are not even there to showcase their statutory pursuant to the provisions of the Constitution, clause for the good governance of Nigeria. However, they are equally there to checkmate the excesses of the president. But they are not doing anything. They are hobnobbing and romancing with the president. You can see that the Senate president is now a comedian on social media. He's now making mockery of Nigerians. Anytime the loan is there to prove it in any...
You saw the video said that, you know, it's all insecurity is actually happening to tarnish the image of the president, that after election is over, watch the first weeks of that. That's why saying that, oh, is it that who I meant you know this people?
You see, tell you that it's not. That know that the process that have been for all of that from clearly for his office. As a Senate president, you are supposed to comport yourself. You are an independent body, pursuant to the provisions of the Constitution. You are not just there by what is it called, by the Senate and the segment of the president. You must carry that charisma. You must exhibit that talent. You must show that you are ready for the job. Not that you go on social media, you are now being used as an instrument.
Barrister Atta, do you know that a lot of persons, apart from the citizens, a lot of persons are actually not in support of the excess borrowing by the president? Yeah, even the emir of Kano State, where that's Sanusi Lamido, you know, he came out to say that it told the president that, you know, if you're not paying subsidy and you have the money, why are you still borrowing? I mean, apart from just Nigerians, the ordinary citizens, there are still lots of other persons that are also not in support of the excess borrowing of the president.
No Nigerians is in support, except the few politicians who the loan, the proceeds of that money will get to their hand. There are those people that are supported because, assuming the loan is approved now, of the system. If I'm even the president today, and then he's now fighting for Nigerians. I mean, it's something that we should not take for granted. It's not everybody that talk on that discussion. A lot of people are silent. But some of us are not silent. We have been demanding, because we are saying that the excess of borrowing is becoming reckless, and there is no justice for the government to be borrowing just like that. When we are not seeing the effects, where is the production? What are you seeing? With the constant borrowing money, it's not enough for you to have the least 10 items on radar as your agenda per se. You know, under Yar'Adua government, I think it used to have some points agenda thereabout. Now, we don't have any targets. If it is a 4-point agenda, it's not by how you have them.
Okay, but at this point, if borrowed funds are mismanaged, who is legally accountable? The president?
The government, because it is a continuation. We come your own, and then they go. It's not just the government. It may be that the people that are assigned the money to execute the job. If they fail to do the job, they'll follow them up criminally. They'll follow them criminal liability. They'll follow them in a civil matter to recover those money. But we don't even know where the money is. Is the government disbursing the money? Is the money with contractors? Is it at the National Assembly? Is it being used for the purpose to which is being disbursed? So we need to know. That's what Nigerians are requesting for. Oh, you are borrowing 5 trillion. You are borrowing so amount. Let me see the project you have used it for. The government will not answer you. Rather, they'll go and support their social media to be casting fake fictitious information in the social domain. So
now that even the Nigeria coming out to like the one government in this money, if the president to address this point, don't you do not matter that this amount and we're not seeing anything. Do you think? I feel. What do you think? Don't you think Nigerians, even if we talk from today, tomorrow, the government tell you that, oh, they are borrowing some money and they are using it, and we're not, what would be, it's like, okay, and talking and nothing is happening, or nothing is being done about it.
It's very dangerous for us to keep quiet. The best is to continue to hammer on them.
Oh.
Yes, it's very dangerous for us to keep quiet. I will not keep quiet. You may decide to keep quiet, but we are not making noise. The law is there. The Freedom of Information Bill is there.
All right.
We can request. We can demand. We can even go to court. A lot of people have gone to court over this matter.
Okay. All right, Barrister Atta, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you for having me today.
Thank you, Nigerians. Thank you for joining our Lagos Network studio this beautiful morning on CMI. I am Marcelina Umko. Would be handing over to our Benin Network studio for the continuation on CMI. Just stay with us.
Hello and welcome to the News Update on ITV. I am Anuluwapo Stevens. The member representing Igwebef constituency at the Edo State House of Assembly, Honorable Ogie Inegbebo, has declared his intention to seek a second term. He made the declaration at the APC Secretariat in Igwebe local government area during a meeting with party members. Joy Obarsiabo reports.
Honorable Eugene Inegbebo's re-election declaration had party leaders and stakeholders in attendance, including Igweben APC leader Ephraim Alebusele, the majority leader of Edo State House of Assembly Jonathan Ivamao, immediate past Deputy Speaker Maria Edeko, and Igweben Local Government Party Chairman Christopher Eni. The gathering also drew a crowd of supporters and loyalists from across the constituency. Addressing the gathering, Honorable Inegbebo reeled out his achievement, pointing out that he has provided 20 open stores at Igwebe Market, as well as a generator and solar lights for different wards in the local government area. He formally declared his intention to serve the people of Igwebe and promised to do more if given another opportunity.
It cost me so much that when I passed through Ward 10, I saw there was no single building in the whole market in Ward 10. So we decided to modernize the Egmont market, and we provided 20 open stores in Egmont market. We were also able to provide a 500 kVA transformer. I did this as a first timer. But if given the opportunity to represent you twice, what you have just seen is a tip of the iceberg.
When the time comes, the party and the leaders will sit down to decide who go represent us.
When he finishes his tenure, that is when I'll be able to take stock as the leader of the local government.
Supporters at the event described him as a man of project and rescue and called for continuity.
He is doing beyond people of Igwebe. This man is doing well. That is why we made him Mr. Project.
And again, we have to thank the governor of the state for even allowing them to use that resources.
The lawmaker also visited the Onoje of Igwebe, Ehizoje Eleojerio, amongst other traditional rulers from different parts of Igwebe. From Igwebe local government area, Joy Obaisiagbon, ITV News.
Meanwhile, in furtherance of his consultations ahead of the APC primaries, House of Representatives hopeful for Igor Ikpeba-Awka Federal Constituency, Dr. Ogogo Taye Garrick has met with APC local government executives and leaders in Ikpeba-Awka local government area to seek nomination and support for his aspiration. The meeting held at the party secretariat located on Opa Sakmabaro, Benin City, had in attendance party leaders and supporters. Ofure Aneto reports.
Accompanied by a large crowd of supporters and his ward chairman, Usaro Sagyodua, Dr. Ogogotaye Garrick was warmly received by party executives and leaders at the APC secretariat in Ikpeba-Awka local government area. Addressing the executives, the House of Representatives hopeful said his aspiration is to serve the people of Ego and Ikpeba-Awka constituency and attract developmental projects to complement the effort of the Edo state government.
I believe that I am well prepared at this time to go because I have worked for it and intentionally worked towards it. Every project in Amuda's constituency project will be on my website. We will police all our projects until they are done to 100% completion, and not just done to 100% completion, but with quality.
Responding, APC chairman in Ikpeba-Awka local government area, Honorable Sonny Ogbewe, commended the aspirant's preparedness and assured him of the party's support.
Because you know what you are doing, you came with a written document. This is what we call social contract. Speaks volume of who you are. Engage anybody constructively. Obasa is your home. Wherever you want us to go with you, we'll go with you. Whatever kind of support you want, we'll give to you. But believe that the overall interest is we are one family.
In an interview, Dr. Garrick said he drew aspiration from Governor Monday Okpewolo's developmental vision and hopes to align his aspiration with it.
If I will be elected by His grace to ensure that I work closely with the head of national, with the leadership of the National Assembly to attract the best developmental projects and infrastructure to complement what His Excellency is already doing in Edo State.
From Benin, Ofure Aneta, ITV News.
We're also staying in politics, where Isako Federal Constituency witnessed a heave of political activities as Honorable Blessing Agba-Mori Esquire officially declared his intention to contest for the House of Representatives seat. The event attracted a massive crowd of party faithful, youth, and stakeholders, signaling strong grassroots support. Edo North correspondent Anthony Igbano reports.
The declaration by Honorable Blessing Agba-Mori to vie for the Isako Federal Constituency seat was graced by all ward chairmen, women and youth leaders, the local government party chairmen, all APC local government chairmanship candidates and key stakeholders. Mounting the stage amid a thunderous ovation, Honorable Blessing Agba-Mori Esquire expressed his interest with clarity and confidence. He positioned his aspiration as part of a progressive wave. Honorable Blessing thanked Governor Monday Okpewolo for empowering youth in governance, describing his administration as part of a new wave of inclusive leadership focused on development and unity.
Come here to officially beg our fathers, our leaders, and our brothers to support me for the House of Reps. The number and amount of young people we have in the government of Senator Monday Okpewolo, Edo people have never had it before.
APC candidate for Isako West, Honorable Romeo Omoike, praised party unity and declared strong support for Honorable Agbomere, saying the large turnout reflects growing confidence in his candidacy.
I want this opportunity to appreciate the leadership of our great parties and followers. And as a result of the unity of the party.
The event ended with celebration and unity as supporters echo a clear message of solidarity and readiness for a new political direction in Isako Federal Constituency. Anthony Igbano, ITV News.
In other news, a strong foundation remains the key to success in life, particularly marriage. Well, this message was emphasized at a recent wedding ceremony held at the GRA branch of Christ Chosen Church of God International, Benin City. The report is presented by Jolade Ojo.
In his sermon, the spiritual leader of the Christ Chosen Church of God International, Senior Apostle David Unwefe, urged the couples and individuals to seek divine guidance before making major life decisions. According to him, aligning with the will and principles of Almighty God helps to prevent future regret. He cautioned that impatience and failure to wait for God's direction could lead to avoidable challenges, stressing that life itself is filled with uncertainties.
The foundation of every business, of whatever you do, matters a lot. If you have a shaky foundation, the business will collapse. You have so many marriages have crashed. They have crashed. Because of what?
Poor foundations.
Poverty.
Foundation, sir.
Poor foundation. The papa get the money. The mama get the money. The guy, they will send a guy, the guy fine. Beauty without character. You are handsome, no character. Do they know God? That girl you are wooing, you want to marry, that boy you want to marry, do they know God? Are they real Christians?
The cleric also highlighted the importance of proper upbringing of children, noting that parents who fail to raise their children well may struggle to enjoy fulfillment later in life. He concluded by encouraging the married couple and attendees to build their lives on strong spiritual and moral foundations to ensure lasting success and stability.
What is the foundation of your marriage? Now, I'm not direct one. So say, we go date first. And I advise you, young boys and girls, before you marry, try your best and do what in. Pay the bride price.
From Benin, Jola Adeojo, ITV News.
Away from that, now to other stories where residents of Oka Street in Uboa, Ward 10, Iga local government area, Edo State, have commended the acting chairman of the council, Honorable Osaro Eribo, for fulfilling his promise to rehabilitate the road. The intervention involved the evacuation of refuse that had taken over the road, as well as grading works to make it motorable. Patient Usaragiwa reports that residents and road users expressed delight over the development, describing it as a timely response to a long-standing challenge in the area.
The newly graded Okao Street is expected to ease movement within the community, improve access for motorists and pedestrians alike, and provide long-awaited relief to residents who had endured years of poor road conditions.
So promise the residents of this community that I will also come and sandfill and grade the road for them, so that the road can be an access road to other roads in the community.
A resident, Mr. Wilfred Ijesu Obu, commended the acting chairman for delivering on his promise and demonstrating responsive leadership.
Everything that is due for us in this street, everybody is happy of this street because many years we are not following this road. A thief and robber, here is the harder for criminal.
Also speaking, Mrs. Patience Uweni praised the efforts and expressed hope that similar developmental projects would be extended to other parts of the locality.
I was just passing by when I saw this Okao Street being worked upon. And from the work I'm seeing, I'm very happy. This place used to be there for area boys. But now, you can just pass. You can just walk freely. No wahala, no stress, no fear. I'm in fact impressed.
Honorable Eibu reaffirmed his administration's commitment to addressing the needs of the people through practical projects aimed at improving their daily lives. From Ego local government area, Patience Osaugiwa, ITV News.
Family, friends and well-wishers gathered on Saturday in Oluku, Benin City to mark the 23rd remembrance of late Pa Edward Omoregbe. The report by Eis Ohunamure is presented by Jolade Ojo.
It was a celebration characterized with music and cherished memories. Children and family members spoke passionately about Pa Edward Enoyose Omoregbe, highlighting his wisdom, guidance, and the enduring influence he had on their lives.
I miss him a lot because I was like a baby girl to him. I really miss him. He's a great father and he's a legend. He's a great man. He loves everybody around. He's so caring. He loves all his siblings. And we are so proud of him and we miss him so much.
My daddy is a very good man, and if there's a reincarnation, he will still be my father when I come. So we miss him dearly. He's a father of all. He's a man of his words and a disciplined man. So we miss him very much. Daddy, we still love you.
I appreciate everyone. I'm very happy. I'm full of joy.
Guests shared stories of his generosity, kindness, and dedication to family and community, creating a vivid picture of a man whose legacy transcends time.
Edward Enoyose Omoregbe is not dead. Seeing the children and the grandchildren, I sincerely believe you don't kill anybody. If he was killed by somebody, that person should be ashamed today.
This our daddy is very nice, very good, very humble. Take up the whole family. He do everybody, touch everybody, gather the whole family.
He has been a wonderful man while he was alive. He has touched the lives of so many people. He has touched the life of so many people.
The event left everyone with a sense of gratitude and a renewed commitment to honor Pa Edward Omoregbe's remarkable life. From Benin, Jola Deojo, ITV News.
And that ends the news at this time. Many thanks for watching. I am Anuluwakbo Stevens. Up next is TMI Socials.
ITV, certainly the best.
Good morning. This is CMI Socials. I am Anuluwakbo Stevens. I better still call me a social media butterfly. Now today we'll begin outside Nigeria, where over the weekend a suspect has been taken into custody following a shooting incident at a high-profile media gala attended by the U.S. President Donald Trump in Washington, with authorities confirming he will face federal charges today. Now, gunshots ran out on Saturday night during the annual White House Correspondents Association dinner at the Washington Hilton Hotel shortly after welcoming speech, according to AFP reporters and eyewitnesses. Let's take a look.
but saved by the fact that he was wearing obviously a very good bulletproof vest. He was shot from very close distance with a very powerful gun, and the vest did the job. I just spoke to the officer, and he's doing great. He's in great shape. He has very high spirits, and we told him we love him and respect him, and he's a very proud guy. He's very proud of what he does.
Now, U.S. President Donald Trump, after the incident occurred in America. Now, reacting to this online, let's see what netizens have been saying. This user wrote, "Let's all pretend like we believe this again." Now, interestingly, some netizens on social media are not believing this viral video or incident that happened. Now, this one wrote, "How can someone bring a rifle into a government building? Either a bunch of incompetent security personnel or staged as usual so he can build his ballroom. We can't be fooled." Now, reacting to this, another user says on Instagram, "Everything is very strange. How can a single person get through the security barrier so easily? It's the Flash." Well, away from that, let's come back down here in Nigeria. Now, this time around in Kano State, where shockingly residents of Kano received branded underwears with the face of Kano State Governor Abba Yusuf as part of the campaign materials distributed to them. A video shared online shows women holding the red branded underwears with the face of the governor printed on them as they danced. Now, let's take a feel. Well, this actually is a new initiative. Initially, in Nigeria, campaign materials are usually rice, caps, t-shirts, and the like, but this, I don't know if other state governors will follow suit, but reacting to this online, let's see what you have been saying. This user wrote, "This is a show of shame." Another user reacting online says, "What does this mean?" And he is laughing. While still in this bit, this one says, "Gradually leaving the era of political parties to the era of political pants." Oh my goodness. Well, reacting to this more, this user says, "Imagine your husband seeing another man's face on your underwear. Who advises these people?" It was really, really hilarious. But away from that, let's talk more serious business this time around, as political leaders over the weekend in Abuja from the opposition party have resolved to present a united front in the 2027 general elections, agreeing to field a single presidential candidate to challenge President Bola Tinubu of the APC. Let's take a listen.
That despite the onslaughts and machinations of the ruling party, the APC, to ensure that President Bola Tinubu emerges as the sole presidential candidate in 2027, we shall field candidates and contest the 2027 presidential and other elections. 3, that we shall work towards fielding one presidential candidate for the 2027 elections. We shall be agreed and
Light of the day, we'll find out by reacting to these online. This is what you have been saying. This one wrote, Governor Makinde is already an ADC member cause Wike PDP faction will never agree to this arrangement. Another user on X wrote, the agreement is a good one, but they should also pull their weight behind anyone who clinches the ticket and avoid any internal tussle. At this point, if they stay united, they might make a lot of difference. Now, finally on the story, this user says, the question now is, who will be the single presidential candidate in 2027? Well, it's up to them and it's up to us to find out at the end of the day. Now, moving away from that, the Emir of Kano State, Muhammadu Sanusi II, has criticized the continuous borrowing by the federal government to fund projects in Nigeria despite the removal of the fuel subsidy. Let's take a listen.
So for me, removing subsidy or liberalizing exchange rate, these are good interventions. Now, were they done at the right time? Those are certain questions. And were there other things that should be done that have not been done? These are other issues. And I think we must make that decision. So it's not enough to say, oh, they removed subsidy. You had to. When you get to a point where 100% of your revenue goes into debt service, you cannot continue. Where is the money going to come from?
Now let's take tweets online. We start off with this user who wrote, let's even agree that the logical reason behind fuel subsidy removal was because it was benefiting foreign countries more than Nigerians. It was meant for, but how do you justify the electricity subsidy removal too? Was that also benefiting foreign nations more? Okay, good question, Shadow on X. Another user wrote, with the removal of fuel subsidy and the borrowing, are you not seeing that the country is changing drastically? E.g., the coastal roads, the infrastructure, the project the president is commissioning. Are you not seeing them? We need wisdom to apprehend things. Now, finally, on TMI socials, in a video that has now gone viral over the weekend, the dancing governor, Governor Ademola Adeleke of Osun State, and his daughter were seen dancing and vibing to a song at his son event. Take a look. Well, absolutely, Joy is indeed coming. That's how we wrap up TMI Socials today. Thank you so much for being part of the show. We'll do this again tomorrow, God willing. I am Nuoluwakbo Stevens. And from all of us right here on the team, Lagos, Abuja, and here in Edo State, goodbye, and please stay safe.